Welcome to Techiecast Jax, where the top technology and business experts around discuss the latest trends in high tech. This podcast is hosted by Joe Holbrook, who's an experienced technologist pundit in Jacksonville, Florida.
Welcome to Techiecast Jax. Joe Holbrook here. I'll be your host today. In this Techiecast, let's talk about Google Cloud DevOps. One of the challenges around cloud computing now is to learn and excel at DevOps. Now, DevOps is, of course, still a buzzword that a lot of folks are still learning about and trying to understand more about, trying to bring DevOps into your organizations. And this is an area of the cloud that clearly is growing from a demand perspective. If there is any demand in the cloud, this is where I see it is right now. Certainly other areas are in demand, but this seems to be the biggest demand from an interest perspective, at least from what I am seeing. When it comes to DevOps, I'm going to talk specifically about Google Cloud in this Techiecast. Some other Techiecasts will be focused on AWS, for example, as well. Now, DevOps, as we know, is really meant to help change and improve the working relationship of our dev and our operations teams. So we want to advocate basically for better communications and collaboration between our business units. Now, being that I've been in IT for 20 plus years, one thing I do remember is that typically in a lot of the organizations, especially when we still had mainframes and all that, development was their own entity, and operations was really their own business unit. And they didn't really talk to each other. And if there was a problem, operations would get, calls from support, and then operations would have to dig in with the support to figure out what the issue is, and then contact the developers to say, hey, something's, wrong with your program, basically, can you fix it? With DevOps, things are a little different. This is where development and operations work together and actually take responsibility for maintaining the production app and support to the customers. Now, DevOps is really more than just a cultural shift when it comes to communication. It's really a technical shift as well. And so running your enterprise deployments is not only changing the way we work together as an organization, but it's also helping us design our software release methods, our testing methods, our updates, integrations, etc. Now, another thing to consider is that we also need to consider the software development lifecycle as well. So this is really part of the main, what I would call cultural change, going into an organization or in our current organizations, basically saying, hey, the way we've been doing software just isn't working. We're going to have to go to more of a lifecycle. Now, this lifecycle, of course, should bring in a collaborative effort. Now, let's talk about Google Cloud and how that falls into play. Now, Google Cloud, we know, is a cloud platform owned by Google. And for those folks that are new to the business, that in case you don't know, Google has been a traditionally developer-friendly organization. And different than Amazon. Amazon has been an enterprise-friendly, marketing-friendly organization generally from AWS. They sold to enterprises. They know how to sell to enterprises. They didn't really, go to a CEO and start talking about how, containers work. CEOs could care less about that. Amazon knows how to sell. Google, on the other hand, traditionally wasn't really focused on marketing to the enterprise until the last few years. But one of the things that Google has been known was they really catered to developers. They talked developer speak. They provided tools for developers. They were a developer-friendly organization to work with generally. And one thing that Google does really well is they provide amazing tools when it comes to DevOps. And some of these tools, of course, will be focused around the pipeline, or as we would call it in development, more of a mainline. Now, the mainline, the pipeline, right, the workflow, whatever you want to call it in your world, has to have tools to be able to take that working copy and then move it up the line so that it could be QA tested and then put into production. And then we got to look at automation as part of that. Do we go from, do we focus more on, integration, deployment? We have to look at all of those things as part of our pipeline. So whatever the phases that we're on, we want to think of basically a CI or CD pipeline as basically going through a workflow, and each workflow has its own steps and best practices to follow as well. So we need to think of a pipeline. Now, pipelines are a critical part of a development lifecycle. That's really the thing to be concerned with. So there's some terms. We have continuous integration. Continuous integration is, of course, the practice of bringing together working copies to a shared pipeline, usually numerous times a day. Lots of great benefits. Main benefits, of course, could boil down to we're able to update features quicker, go to market quicker. We're able to, reduce, for example, lead time is really the term I should use, and, test it out in little bits and bytes. Continuous delivery, continuous deployment as well. Again, some other terms you're going to hear about. Now, there's great benefits with continuous deployment and, integration, of course, but whatever those benefits are, what really should happen is we get some technical benefits, but we should also get some financial benefits or business-related benefits. And what are those business-related benefits? We should get some kind of, lead time to market, better feedback from the customer, return on investment, right? These are things that the business is really concerned about. Now, some of the tools, for example, with Google Cloud Services could be cloud source repositories. This is basically a GitHub that's hosted and managed by GCP. What's nice about the service is I could integrate my current GitHub or Bitbucket into Google Cloud as well pretty seamlessly. So I don't have to actually move anything per se from GitHub. I could leave it on GitHub and then basically fork it over into Google Cloud. Really simple to do. Then we have Cloud Build. This is basically the service that executes the builds. So for example, if we're already using, for example, Jenkins, Terraform, any of these products using on-prem, right, for your pipelines, builds, etc., you could use the same in Google Cloud if you want to. There's marketplace solutions. But for Google Cloud purposes, let's focus on these services. So the main DevOps services with Google Cloud is Cloud Source Repositories. That's our GitHub hosted on Google Cloud. Cloud Build, that's our build service. Then we have Container Registry. This is for our artifact management. This is to ensure that we maintain some revision control, security, etc. And then we have Kubernetes Engine. This is Google Cloud's hosted Docker container service. And it's really meant, again, to integrate as well with their on-prem capabilities. And Google has some amazing capabilities when it comes to Kubernetes. And this is why I see a huge demand for DevOps and Kubernetes knowledge in Google Cloud. It's a natural fit. And also, too, remember, Google really developed Kubernetes and they gave it out to the community basically to better the tech world, basically. So that was a huge gift, and that's something that AWS can't say. Now, infrastructure as code. Now, when it comes to infrastructure as code, we have Deployment Manager. Now, if you're familiar with AWS, that's basically our CloudFormation comparable. Now, or if you're using Terraform, this is really, again, what we could use. Now, I have a blog post, several of them on Google Cloud DevOps. I'm going to leave some links in the description. Also, too, if you go to Medium on Fawn, highly posted there in that publication. And then, of course, you go over to Tech Commanders and GCP Gurus are my blockchain experts. Plenty of content there on Google DevOps that I have posted. Stack drivers. So we need to monitor, log, report, look at the trace, debug, right? This is what Stack Driver does. So Kubernetes, we know, is a cluster management and orchestration tool for Docker containers. It is open source, and we could use JKE basically to integrate with our on-prem services as well. Now, Kubernetes engine effectively uses Compute Engine in the background. And if you're already familiar with the Compute Engine, it's really just using Compute Engine for the VMs. When it comes to Google Cloud DevOps, again, a lot of demand. I encourage you to check out the demand for Google Cloud professionals. Go over to Google Trends. Also, too, I have posts on salaries, demand as well, courses on DevOps as well. But with that said, just be aware Google Cloud DevOps is really continuing. And also, too, there's a brand new book that I have on Google Cloud Professional Cloud DevOps Engineer Exam. So if you want to get certified with Cloud DevOps with Google, there is a certification book available on Amazon. And then I have some practice questions on Kindle as well. With that said, I'm going to wish everybody a great month ahead, and I wish you much success with your careers and health as well.